Oh, there will be some of this sentiment around the league, certainly from fans in Oklahoma City. Paul Pierce with some cheeky words for Kevin Durant as he exits the Thunder on his way to Golden State. We spoke with a couple of Hall of Famers, Isiah Thomas and Reggie Miller, about so-called super teams.
When you're talking about winning championships and you're talking about competing against, the opponent, and I'll take myself back to when we had to compete against the Celtics and try to dethrone the Celtics. You always want to make the opponent weaker so you can, therefore, dethrone them. And if Larry Bird had any point in time said, hey, I want to come play for the Detroit Pistons, we all would have welcomed Larry Bird with open arms and said, hey, come play with us. In sports, I believe in dominance. I believe that, when you do have super teams and you do have great players playing with each other, I think it makes the game better and it elevates the league and it forces everyone to dig a little deeper and get a little better. So I refer to those Celtics teams and I look at those Lakers teams. I mean, Matt, when I stood on that podium with the 50 greatest players ever, I was the only one on that podium who didn't have a teammate that was one of the 50 greatest players to ever play the game. So all these, when we talk about great players moving teams, moving from team to team to play with each other, that's always been the history of our league. However, that hasn't been the narrative of our league. But when you look at that Laker team, when you look at that Celtic team, all those teams were stacked. And I'm sure when Jerry West had a chance to speak to Kevin Durant, he probably pointed out to him that Magic played with Kareem, Worthy, Bob McAdoo, so forth and so on. It's that's how the league is.
I never wanted to play with them. I always wanted to beat them because it was a sense to me of pride and purpose to beat the other greats. Would it have been nice and probably easier on my body to play with those guys? Absolutely, yeah. I'm no dummy to play with Michael Jordan. Yeah, I just camp out in the wing and just shoot threes. But I wanted to compete against the other best of my time. This is no knock on LeBron from Cleveland to Miami and no knock on Durant from OKC to Golden State. I understand it. We are judged in our game by championships, and that's what people always bring up about me. I never won a championship. Great playoffs, great career, one city, one team, but at the end of the day, I didn't win championships. And when it's all said and done, if Durant has 2, 3, 4 championships, we're not going to talk about him defecting from OKC to the Warriors. We're just going to focus in on his championships. And he looks around the landscape of the NBA, and he sees LeBron James just got his third. And what I'm really curious about, if the Warriors had won, being up 3-1 and had won the championship, being back-to-back champs, would he have made this decision? I think the Warriors being up 3-1, getting punched in the chin, and losing in 7 games, it made them look very vulnerable. And I think this was the best time and the right time for Durant to join them. I don't think he joins this team if they're back-to-back champions.
There's what Golden State's super team looks like right now, and with months to go before they need to finalize the roster. But it's a pretty good group. 4 All-Stars in the starting lineup, the last 2 MVPs with Curry and Kevin Durant. It's interesting you hear the opinions on these so-called super teams. And Isaiah's point is well taken. NBA champions throughout history typically have had more than one great player.
Right.
I guess where some people feel like it's maybe changed or where it rubs them the wrong way is when it happens inorganically in some way.
Right.
They don't come up together. They don't go through the battles and suddenly they form a team, almost in an AAU sort of sense. Well, where do you stand on this?
Well, I think to win a championship, you have to have players, and you have to have layers of players. When you look at the San Antonio Spurs, you got Manu Ginobili, you got Tim Duncan, you've got Kawhi Leonard, you got Parker.
Yeah.
And that's 4 potential. You can make an argument that they're all-stars. So you need the talent to be there. The problem seems to happen when the player decides that this is where he wants to go. And I'm trying to figure out, why is that a problem? If a GM were to make the move strategically and move the chess pieces and acquire a certain player in a certain way, we say, oh, that's great. The GM is brilliant. Way to go.
It's a power shift.
But now the players are now moving the pieces and saying, you know what? I'm not going to let you tell me where I have to go. I want to go over here. LeBron says, he gets with the players and figures out a way, look, we're going to all end up in Miami. Why is it a problem when the players start to be the ones to make the moves? Why are we, from a public standpoint, viewing it as problematic? If a GM, if an owner had made this same decision, we would call him brilliant.
So they have the power and the money now, as we're seeing this agent
That's right. So times are changing, and I think we need to change our thought process with a lot of this.
All right, more ahead here.